The cost of IT in business can be staggering. From hardware and software expenses to services like internet and phone, you don't need to spend a fortune on IT to succeed. If your organization spends more than $500 monthly on any service, or you're considering signing a long-term contract, IT Enabled can help you manage your technology and minimize your costs. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation. IT Enabled, we're here to help.
So welcome to the 200th episode of Chamber Connect, connecting business to the community. We're excited to have you all here this morning. Like I said, we typically do this in a very small room, so we're excited to have a live audience. And Blake Pollino and I moderate this every single month, and we tell the stories of our investors.
Yep, that's right. It's been a really fun journey, 200 episodes. I don't know that I would have guessed that it would have made it this far. We did our 100th episode live like this, and it's a pretty different dynamic than the little podcast room where we're all sitting in there. But it's fun to get to record this way and tell the stories that we get to tell every week of local people. And so far, we've had a lot of people come back and repeat. I mean, we're a pretty small town, so 200 unique guests would probably be a pretty tall order. So I think this is the second time that we've had this organization here with us, and I'm super excited to talk with them.
Absolutely. So we will get started. So we welcome Natalie Thornton and Jana Nairn from CASA of the Pines. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. We're very honored.
Absolutely. So for those that are not familiar with CASA, and for those that are listening today, tell us, what is CASA? What exactly does it stand for? What do you do? What's your mission?
CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and it actually began, I believe, in 1976 in Seattle, because it was a judge that realized that there were foster kids that just needed extra help. And so the program began then, and then, of course, it has exploded and been around now for a long time. It has been here in Angelina County since 1996. This is our 30th year to have the CASA program. So basically, when a child is placed in foster care, then the judge appoints a CASA, who is actually part of the Texas Family Code. It's a guardian ad litem for the child, and they advocate for the best interest of the child. So by doing that, it's different for every child because every child has different needs. So the CASA advocate will visit the child in their home, at their schools, talk with teachers, foster parents. They'll help and assist their parents or whoever that they were removed from, and provide them resources and encouragement. Then they'll do court reports and go to court and make recommendations.
So what is more specifically, you talk about it being court appointed, and these are volunteer roles that you had. I remember the first time we had you on the podcast, I didn't have the time in my schedule at the time, and I'd love to revisit it, but I found this so just fascinating what these people do. What does kind of a day-to-day look like in that role of being an advocate?
Okay. Why don't I pivot that question? This is, if I can introduce,
This
is Dr. Jana Nairn, and she has been a CASA advocate for 15 years, and we have developed a very close bond in the past 15 years. And she recently retired from SFA at the end of May, as she was the Department Chair for Education Studies. And so she is actually the person who is more the hero. I'm the person who just works there. So she's, it really is. It's a volunteer-driven organization is what I'm trying to say. And, of course, all of our staff, we have a heart for it and everything. But, I mean, when you're a volunteer and you're dedicating 15 years of your extra time to something like this, and that's truly remarkable. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, Jana?
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me. Not a hero. I just have a heart for kids, and was really intrigued with the idea 15 years ago of becoming a CASA, and I really at the time did not know exactly what all that would entail. In fact, Natalie and I have laughed because I called and said, so is there a little training or something that I'll do? Well, there's a big training that you do, but it's not too big. It's just enough that really prepares you to go out and spend time with these children. I always say that as a CASA volunteer that I have a unique role with the families, because when a family enters into the foster care system, there are so many strangers that pass through their home. And many of those people, it's their job as a volunteer, they know that I'm there just simply because I care about the welfare of their child. And so first thing, as I introduce myself to the biological parents and then the placement, I say, I want you to know this is not my job. I have another job, but this is my volunteer role because I care about your child or children and your family, and I just want to be here to help. And it really does, as Natalie says, it looks different depending on the age of the child. Through the years that I've been a CASA, the ages of the children that I've served have ranged from infants to teenagers. In fact, I had one that was a teenage mom herself. And so the scenarios are all quite different and the needs of those children are different. But what I always keep in my mind is that my job is to be the voice of the child in court because they can't speak for themselves. And so if that child is an infant, of course, I'm making a judgment. If that child is 12 years old, I'm saying, tell me what you think would be best for you. And then I'm still making a judgment to make a recommendation. But I get to be the voice for that child. Again, Natalie said it could involve time with schools. My background is education, as she said. And so for the school-age children, I am always present, meeting with their teachers, with their counselors. I've sat in on ARD meetings. And of course, with an infant or a toddler, that looks quite different. I'm talking to child caregivers. So, yeah, that's a little bit in a nutshell of what my experience has been.
You definitely have to have a heart for this. And you have to be able to, I think, to separate yourself from the situation. And I think that I would have a really hard time doing that. I'm not sure that I'm emotionally stable enough to be able to separate myself. And I'm being serious about that. Like, I would just want to take them all home and get them out of whatever situation that they're in. So, Natalie, you said that it's been here since 1996. How long have you been at CASA, and what really drew you to it?
I began in August of 2009, so I think about 16 years, 17 years. I'd heard about the job and the position. I had worked for Junior Achievement and was the director for Angelina County for 12 years before that. And so honestly, what drew me is very different than what draws a lot of people who have who were CASA directors, because I didn't have a social work background. I didn't know any more about foster care than, I mean, some of you may know a lot more. Well, I know one of you does. Kenichi knows a whole lot more about foster care than what I did when I began. I didn't know any more than just a lay person, but I knew a lot about nonprofit management, board development, fundraising, you know, all of the management type stuff, and that really is probably more my skill set, because that's what I came into the organization knowing. And there is a really big learning curve with this position, just like with a CASA advocate, just like our staff. There's a lot to learn. But then after you learn it, I mean, it really does. I mean, it gets a lot more manageable, the position, because you know what you're doing. Yeah. So. But I would also say that, you know, if you start a job and you don't know what you're doing, I mean, that's a time to grow and time to learn. And so I just looked at it as an opportunity for me to learn something new. And I did. I walked into the job the first day and I had to do payroll, and I was the only person there. So I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. So I called the accountant, and she told me what to do on QuickBooks. And I'm like, okay, well, we just did payroll. So, yeah, that's how it started. And then now I know how to do payroll, and I have to do it again today.
So how's this system changed over the years? So in the 16 or so years that you've been there, and how's the child welfare system specifically changed in that time?
Well, that's actually a really good question. It's changed quite a bit, and there's some other people in the room who have a lot of knowledge on that too. One thing that happened was that about 4 or 6 years ago, a bill passed called House Bill 567, and it tightened the parameters on removal. There was a group of young adults who had gotten together, and they actually sued the state of Texas because, I mean, just in my layman's terms, they basically said that if they had just stayed at their home, their outcomes would have been better than being removed and put in foster care. So it really definitely made it to where the reason for removal has to be a lot stronger, because it is very true. I mean, think of all of you. Like, what if you had been removed from your home I mean, that would have been the most, probably potentially the most traumatic thing that had ever happened to you. So they take that pretty seriously now. And removals across the state are about half what they used to be. So it also makes it to where a lot of our cases are percentage-wise more severe than they used to be. And, I did think about how, there's so much that goes on with it, and we all, probably a lot of us have kids. And, I was with my niece's daughter, who's 3 this week, and I remember my niece would say, well, she didn't have a good nap, so she might be cranky, or she had too long of a nap, so she may not go to bed forever. Like little things like that can throw a child off. And so if you think about how, if that can throw a child off, how much something really traumatic and abuse or neglect can throw a child off. And that's one thing that I think our society doesn't realize, that how a child is affected by trauma because of, it adversely affects their behaviors. And that's something that a lot of people aren't very patient with. Schools, they don't know how to handle the situation. Foster parents don't know how to handle it. Society as a whole don't.
If I could chime in there, I would just add that Natalie's talking about disruption to children's lives. And thinking of my role as an advocate and also an educator, I always took it very seriously, and still do, when there are school-age children that are in a situation. Sometimes even the classroom teacher doesn't even realize the situation that the child is in. And so I always take it upon myself fairly early, once a case is assigned to me, to go and sit and meet with that teacher and talk about strategies to help with the child in the classroom. And then in addition to that, I would just say sometimes decisions are made about removals or changes of placement with very little consideration in the courtroom, because of course the judge isn't thinking about, school's going to get out in 2 weeks. And there have been times when there was about to be a decision, we're going to move this child and they're going to go to a new school for 2 weeks, and then it's going to be summer. And so I would always speak up for, wait, let's think about this disruption. Are we really going to take this child and put them in a new school for 2 weeks, and then it's going to be summer? It's just change. And so that's just an example, as you were talking, that I thought of as that my role as a CASA advocate, that I could speak up for some of those things that might not be considered.
So, Jana, you were talking about the training, and I would think that would be essential, what you just talked about, being able to talk to the teachers. Is that something that all advocates do, or is that just you because of your background? Because I would think that that's vital for those kids.
Yeah, and because Natalie sees all of the cases, you may know more than I do how many people actually are speaking with teachers. You're right. A part of that is because I'm an educator, and so I love to have it's natural, and I love cases that are school-age children, because I feel like I can really help them because of my understanding of schools and school systems. But yeah, I don't know. When I think back to the training, my goodness, it was 15 years ago. I don't remember school-specific training. I will say one of the things that stood out to me, and this is a little bit veering off your question, but while we're talking about training, was really the training emphasizes to potential volunteers or future volunteers that you're looking to be an advocate for the child in the best possible case scenario for that child. And that doesn't mean that child's life may match this perfect scenario that you have in your mind. That you're looking for the best possible outcome for that child with the circumstances in that child's life. I could tell you some funny stories about some school-age kids that I've said, tell me where would you want to live? And I had one kid say, I really want to live with a rap star. I was like, I'll work on that one.
Then you really would be the hero.
If I could have pulled that off, I would take hero status. But
Our next podcast.
Yes. How to get a rap star. Well, what is the biggest challenge that you see facing child welfare today?
Probably lack of foster homes is pretty common, which I understand that being a foster home, there's a lot to it, and it's probably very sad to be a foster parent at times. And I know that they get paid, but I'm sure it's not worth the money. I think that's a very difficult. Number two, support for kinship placements. There's a lot of red tape that involves the government, and I don't think that that's very fair a lot of times, because kinship placements are, I would say in the past 16 years have definitely done a much better job of working with families about getting kids placed with grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, relatives that are maybe even not even actual real relatives, not actually biological relatives, neighbors and whatnot. So I think that's a real challenge, definitely. For a lot of people, they don't actually know that Texas had a big overhaul in the child welfare system, that they are going to what they call community-based care. Are you guys familiar with that?
Not at all. Why
No.
don't you tell
In
us?
which it's, when I've often mention that when I'm doing speeches, and rarely do people have any information on that, which is a testament that children are not the focus in our society. Because if you don't know that the entire state of Texas, that CPS is ran completely different, if you have no idea and you're a regular member of society and you're a community leader, then that says something. In the past, when you heard Child Protective Services, that was the government agency. Now we have different regions have contracts, kind of like how you hear about prisons that are private ran. So it's privately run, and the one for our region is called Texas Family Care Network. I almost like, okay, Texas Family Care Network. And I personally feel that Texas Family Care Network is one of the strongest ones for the state of Texas. Maybe because we are more of a rural area, it's easier for our community, because it is called community-based care. But it also puts, how shall I put it? Let's say hypothetically that there's a child who is removed in our area, and then he is moved to live with some family in San Antonio. Well, San Antonio is going to have a whole different group of people working. So it's they'll do things differently. I know when I spoke with one of the head people for Texas Family Care Network, they told me that through the state of Texas, when they train a worker, they have to use the state CPS curriculum. It's required. So Texas Family Care Network can't use their own curriculum to train their workers. You see? So really the state, whether it's Texas Family Care Network or it is the state itself, is just a really bad parent. It's just not really what children, it's just never an ideal situation.
It doesn't put the child first.
Well, it just can't,
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have anybody that's a foster parent here in the audience? No. I know Kanishi? Yeah, kinship? Oh, bless you for that. I know Ashley Berry has done foster care, and she's just adopted a precious little boy that she's had with her. So I think you definitely have to have a calling for that and a heart for that. So thank you for stepping up and doing that.
And so much patience, because if any of you know Ashley, how long has that little boy been in her home?
A long time.
Yeah, several years. Yeah.
And she's had multiple children in her home. So, yeah, it's definitely a calling.
If I could just chime in here
Absolutely.
too, when Natalie was saying that, one of the challenges is the number of foster homes, I would also say the number of quality foster homes, because I keep going back to trying to explain my role as an advocate. I did have a case at one point that was in a really bad family situation, did need to be removed. The child was removed, placed in a foster care system that upon my first visit, a foster home, that upon my first visit I could tell was worse than what the child left. And so we actually were able to get that changed. And so, again, a lot of disruption in this child's life, but the child really went from bad to worse to then much better.
Another thing that is a positive, and Kenichi, you probably remember, there's not as many what they call residential treatment centers that are mass and big like there used to be, and they seem to be more regulated. I know several years ago, my son was in college in San Antonio at UTSA, and there was a residential treatment center there. So a lot of times if I would go see him, I would go by and see some kids from our program because I felt like, I mean, I'm 5 hours away. I might as well go see these kids, you know. And that, I remember one time, because with CASA, we don't drive kids. We can't drive kids. I mean, we can for special occasions if we really, really need to, or there's an emergency, but that's not part of our practice. So there was a kid, and I was going to take him some food, okay, but he couldn't eat. Like, I couldn't bring him food and then him go back upstairs and eat in front of those other kids. So I had to take him off campus. But I can't drive him. Or I'm not going to drive him. So I just took him into the parking lot, basically. Okay, you know, we just sat there out by the car. And I remember he was like, wow, I haven't seen trees in a long time. Because he had been in that building for that long. And I remember talking to another CASA program, and they one time had been in that building, and the doors were kind of like these right here. And they were talking to their kid in the lobby, and another kid came down that elevator and ran out that door, which was locked, and busted the glass, like you see like in a movie where somebody's robbing a bank or something like that. Yeah, it was traumatic just as an adult to go there. And I'll never forget when that child said that to me. I was just like, but that place, I believe, is closed now. And there aren't as many of those kind of places like there used to be. And so I'm thankful for that there's been some positive change.
What role do those treatment centers play? I mean, you said is this what we would have called an orphanage 50 years ago?
100%. That's
okay.
what we would call an orphanage.
Got it.
Yes. And, you know, that usually are kids that they don't begin there, but they've suffered a lot of trauma. They may have other types of special needs. And so that's where they kind of, for lack of a, you know, ended up, you know, like that's where they have ended up. And there's been others that, I mean, I've been to maybe 10, and there were plenty of others that were not like that, you know, and others that had a lot more freedom, that had a lot more of a family-like atmosphere. But now it's just way less likely for a kid to be in those kind of centers. They're more likely to be with kinship placements or, you know, in foster homes that have less kids than that.
What part, and I'm sure it varies, but what part of this process of a child being removed from their home is an advocate usually most involved in? Is it deciding if they are moved? Is it in the transition? Is it kind of all of the above? What does that look like?
The advocate's not really involved during the removal from the original home. The advocate is presented with, and I do want to say this, presented with the opportunity to take the case. So once I'd been through the training, for my very first case, I can remember being presented with the opportunity to take this case, and I was reading through the file, and I actually recognized a name in the file as someone in my community, and I said, this one's not a good fit for me because I feel like that would be really hard. So then another case comes up, and I review that case. So it's really after the removal has happened that that the advocate is presented with the opportunity, and you can say no if there are, just like I said, I recognized a name and thought that would be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one thing, even though our main objective is to serve children, our second objective is to provide a positive volunteer experience for a person. Okay, so we really do try to cater to their needs. When the training is 30 hours, but it's 12 hours face-to-face, and then it's independent online for the other part of that. During that training, we do a big assessment on that person. You know, what are they going to be comfortable with? What age group do they want to work with? We also try to find out things like, let's just say hypothetically somebody's like, well, I go to Houston every week for work. Well, if we have a kid placed in Dallas, we probably wouldn't offer that. But if we had a kid placed in Houston, we would offer it because that's going to fit with their lifestyle and their schedule better. So we really try to tailor a lot of logistical things and practical things. We also, during the training, we'll be like, is there a certain type of situation that you don't think you would feel comfortable being an advocate for? And we find that out too. You know, sometimes there's people who maybe they grew up in a situation where something happened to them to where that would be a trigger. And so we wouldn't want to place that person with, in a situation that made them uncomfortable. So,
How many advocates do you have?
we have, we actually don't just serve Angelina County. We serve Polk County and Houston County too. So we have approximately 50 advocates and approximately 100 cases. And a case is a sibling group or one child. And I say approximately, we get cases and, it's, today the number could have changed, and I just don't know it yet. So
how does someone, like if somebody here this morning I'm sitting here thinking I've got a calling to do that, what do they need to do to become an advocate?
Okay. You can visit our website and click the Apply Now button, and then you do the application, and then it comes to us, and then we set up an interview, kind of do a little screening, see. It's an opportunity for you to get to know us, can ask more questions, and then we get to learn more information about you. And also during that interview, we have a time that we can set up your training schedule. We have a full-time trainer, and that person tailors the training to your needs it's Trelawney Price, and she considers the training to be more of a conversation, to keep it very active to where you're not just having to sit there and just listen to somebody. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I do want to mention, during the holidays, you do the CASA Home Tour, and it is a great fundraiser for y'all. So before we end all of this, why don't you tell everybody about the CASA Home Tour, and you can announce the date if you want.
I'd have to look at the calendar to announce the date. I don't have that in my head. I believe this year it's the second Thursday in December, and the home tour CASA has been doing, I think, for about 28 years. And the thing that's so nice about the home tour that I just love is that it is such a tradition in our community. And Tara is our biggest home tour cheerleader.
I think I've been there for 28 years.
I think she has.
I love it.
Yes. And it's the same group of ladies. It's her mom and some other friends.
Yeah, I'm the DD. They drink, giggle, and talk about all the different homes and what they can do and take into their home, and I drive them around.
Yes.
So, yeah, they have a good time.
It is. It's a lot of fun. It's just basically people buy a ticket and go around, and then we have sponsors and whatnot, and it's just a good day.
Yeah. How many of you have been to the home tour? Yeah, it's so much fun. If you have not been, mark your calendar for the second Thursday of December. It's definitely worth it. Get a group of girls, get a group of guys, girls and guys. But it's definitely a lot of fun. And it's just so nice that people invite you into their homes for you to see a part of their Christmas magic. So it's a great tradition and a great fundraiser for y'all.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find more about your organization if they want to volunteer, if they want to get involved, if they want to support you in other ways? How can they do that?
They can visit our Facebook page, they can visit our website, or give us a call, which is casapines.org is our Facebook page.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone here in the live audience, for coming out this morning and learning more about this organization and what we do. And we appreciate everyone listening at home that is not here live with us. We appreciate all of your support. And be sure to share this episode with someone who you might think finds this type of work interesting or this story interesting. And we will see you all next week.